Hi, everyone. It is John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur here, and welcome once again to IFYL Inspirations for Your Life. It's so great to have you here tonight. I know we're kind of getting into the wee hours of the morning, so it actually is Wednesday, but I always promise to get these out to you before I turn in for the night. So great to have you here. If you are new to my channel, you will notice there's a QR code. Take the phone, scan the QR code. It'll get you to my link tree with lots of great information. If you have problems reaching that, just go to believemeachieve.com, which will get you to my link tree as well. Lots of great information to help you become a better version of yourself and help others become better versions of themselves as well. If you're coming back, well, welcome back, my friends, colleagues, and associates. It's wonderful to have you here and supporting me. And some of the new people, hopefully they'll become just like you that have been following me for quite a long time. All right, so what is that master topic that we're talking about? Well, it is what is the tip of the iceberg. And what do we mean by what is the tip of the iceberg, right? If you ask that question, tip of the iceberg. Let's think about that for a second. Well, we talked about it in a few other days about the fact that there's a top and then there's something below, right? And so that's what we mean by it. But what else means tip of the iceberg? Well, let's think of it in one way. Maybe you're working on a success plan, okay? And you're only seeing what's there today, but you're not seeing everything else. And the reason you're not seeing everything else is because you're just focusing on the tip, what you see. Just like, for example, with this bottle of water, okay? All you might see at the top is this. If you didn't see this below, you wouldn't actually see what's in the bottle. Now, same thing can happen with a lot of things in life. A tip is what we perceive or what we see first. All right. If we say a person is the tip of the iceberg, sometimes people come off a little harsh or brash. And it's not because they're bad people. It's because they didn't make a good first impression. So that would be an example of a tip of the iceberg. Person might be really a great person, really wonderful. However, the tip that was shown was not really good. And so you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. Did you know that? Unfortunately, you don't. You just don't. So a tip of the iceberg can refer to basically being the beginning. So when we talk about the beginning of something, the beginning of whether we're starting one way or we're starting another way, that's known as like a tip of the iceberg. A tip of the iceberg is also a small portion, okay? And a lot of times if we're working on a puzzle, a tip of the iceberg would be a clue, would be a hint. So if you understand what a hint is, then you're able to refine that hint to figure out what might be underneath the actual iceberg, right? Because what we see on the top is great. Let's think of it like this. If you ever rode a car, which I'm sure you have, and you see this great big sign, right? It's very catchy and all this wonderful stuff. Or you see this big, let's say this streamer that's in the air. You know, like a lot of times they have these monster streamers, and you see the tip, the top, but you don't really see what's below it, okay? And all you do is you see the tip because the tip's supposed to lead you to where the event is or what have you. And usually it's attached to a big blower. But you don't see that. You just see this thing in the air. And then when you get close to it, you can actually see what's underneath. But a lot of people miss that. It's not because they're not intelligent. It's because the tip is all they see flying in the middle of the air. And so when we think about a tip is not a bad thing, but we can't perceive the tip as everything, right? A tip can also be referred to as part of a problem, not the entire problem, but it can be referred to as part of the problem. And so when we think about part of the problem, that means there's one piece that we've discovered. Now, it might not be the whole problem. It might not be any of the problem. It might be just a perception. You've heard the old adage, you can't judge a book by its cover. So can you really judge the tip, okay, of the process by just that? No, you can't. What else can you judge the tip by, or by one piece? Well, let's say you were, I don't know, you were working at a factory, and you were taking some samples. Now, if you took one or two samples, that would not be enough to tell whether the product is actually good or not. You have to sample so many of so many parts, right? So many thousands or so many million, depending on what the algorithm is, depending on what you're manufacturing. I remember when I was doing something for Stanley back in college, they had a sample rate. I think it was 1 every 1,000th. And what would happen is they had these milling machines, and they were making the blades, right? So they had these servo motors on them, okay? And they could be adjusted manually, okay? And so they were these little wheels that could be manually turned, but by having these servo motors with sensors on, they were able to make the adjustments automatically. And by doing this, it was able to do the job of what a human would do in a fraction of the time. So if 1,000 blades went through, suddenly after 1,000 blade, it would make a calibration change, and then it would process next. So after that millionth blade or 1,000th blade, it would probably kick out 1 or 2 what was making the adjustments. So 2 or 3 blades to kick out over 1,000, not too bad, right? And then the quality returned back to 100% until it got to another 1,000 or whatever it was. And so that's the whole thing. It's something called fault tolerance. But if we base our fault tolerance on the tip of something, well, then we're going to be really dismayed. Let's say that you want a piece of cake, right? This beautiful cake. And all you do is have a tiny sliver of it. The sliver doesn't quite break into where the filling is. It might, the filling might go through some parts, but it might not hit every piece. So you just take a sliver. That's not enough of a sample to be able to tell me whether that cake is any good or not. What are you talking about, John? All right. So a sample, a sliver, a tip of the iceberg is what we see at first glance, right? Business card. If I held the business card just like this, can't really see much of the card, even though it's a tip or it's a piece of it. Can't really tell much of it just from that. You have to see the whole card. Now, in life, I find that a lot of people are quick to draw conclusions. And when they draw these conclusions, what we find out is that they are not in alignment with what they really thought. They do it because it's quick and it's easy and like, oh yeah, this is really easy to do. It's simple and this must be the way. What they find out is, oh shoot, that wasn't really the way. That wasn't the right way to do it. And they find this out after spending hours and hours of time. By doing that, this becomes a real problem. So the top of a container is not enough to give you what's in the container, right? We say you can't judge a book by its cover. Can you judge what's in the container by just seeing the top of it? If I just showed you the top of this water bottle and you didn't see it was below it, or just this container, could you tell what was in it? No. You probably think it's water, but you really can't tell me. So what else has a top? Well, here's a stamper, all right? Can you judge the stamper by this? Not unless you see this, right? Okay, let's see, you guys can see it. It says enter. If you just looked at this, you really can't, it's hard to kind of judge, right? So a tip is a small portion, it's a small part of what we have. And that small part becomes part of a bigger part. Let me show you something else. Let's say we have a poem, like I have here. If I just read you the first sentence, is that enough? No. If I was to get a sample of somebody's run, let's say I was able to figure out how fast they ran in 3 seconds. Would that be enough to get an hour? Probably not accurate. I need a little bit more time. I probably need a few minutes to accurately calculate that, or my prediction is probably going to be off. How about an experiment? If I don't look at more than the tip, my hypothesis is going to be wrong. I speculate what I see from the top, but I haven't looked at the whole entire experiment. All right. If you were to ask somebody to help you and they said no, can you base whether they're a good person based on whether they said yes or no? Because there could be reasons. There could be lots of things. They might be a great person, but then again, they may not be a good person. Can you judge music by its first bar? No, you can't. You got to hear a few measures of it, right? Can you judge a car without driving it? No. So when we look at a tip, we're looking at one attribute, one part of something, but it's not enough to give us a full representation. Let me give you something else. I've got this little container here, right? What's in it? I don't know. I'm only looking at the tip. Can't tell. If I take it out, I can easily see what's in it. In this case, it's just a clear bottle. What else has a tip on it? Well, if you were to look at, let's say, a battery, can you tell if a battery is charged by looking at the tip of it? No. You've got to take a reading, a measurement. Can you tell whether food is safe just by looking at it? Not always. Can you tell if you're on the right track in life by just one thing? No. You need several things to see if you're within lane. If you look on the highway, can you tell whether you're in a lane by just looking at one line? Well, you could tell if you're out of the one line, but you couldn't tell if you're on the other side. So usually if you're out of the one line, you're probably in the other, but not necessarily, right? So we have to look at what it is that we're trying to compare. Okay, let's look at a pen, for example. Here's a pen. Here's the tip of the pen. By looking at the tip, can I tell if there's enough ink in this pen? Not really. What do I have to do? I have to open the pen up, like so. And if I do that, take a second here. Okay, now, this particular pen is clear, so I can't tell. But normally, you would actually have the ability to see it because it would actually be clear, right? All right. Other things that we need to look at for being clear. Tip. Can you tell whether just by looking at something, if it's going to be safe? Let's say it's a shelf. You could probably tell it's not safe, but could you tell that it was sturdy enough? You could hypothesize and look at what seems to be correct, but then again, you don't really know if those are nailed to the wall right or screwed to the wall well. If they aren't, you're speculating. So a lot of times in life, we speculate by looking at a sample, by looking at one part, because it's too hard to look at everything. And then if you don't have enough of a sample, well, then you really have a big problem. Pretty cool, right? Ladies and gentlemen, I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. It has been an amazing privilege, pleasure, and honor to be with you this evening, as it is every single evening and morning. I hope you will like and support my channel by definitely Get doing that below. Also commenting below. What is a tip in your life? What do you look at? What do you sample? Then tag your friends, colleagues, and associates. Share this out with everyone you know on social media. And then go to my YouTube channel and look for the key phrase, help keep our content free. And then make the choice, ladies and gentlemen, to buy my team and a cup of coffee. We'll be so grateful with those pennies and dollars. We'll invest into new hardware, new technology, new equipment, new software, and even new facilities to give you the most jaw-dropping, motivational content ever to keep you on your path and going forward toward your success, your dreams, and your passions. Have yourself a great rest of your night or morning, wherever you guys are. And I will be back tomorrow, well, just today, later tonight, which will be Wednesday, and that will be our next episode, episode 5. Have yourself a great one, everyone. And remember, looking at the tip might not be enough to help you make the right decision for your business or your personal life. Take care, everyone.